If you're anything like me, you've probably had multiple different pedal board setups over the years. And in this video, I'm going to show you a new setup that I'm going to create using the Bluguitar Amp 1 and the HX effects from line 6. Now, what's different about this setup than any other setup I've ever had is it's using a real amp and a digital multi-effects on the same board. I'm actually switching gain staging, channels, and lots of other stuff on the Amp 1 using Midi on the HX effects. So I think combining the two units is going to be a very powerful setup that's going to give me the natural tube amp overdrive and sound and a very, very small form factor, and then get all the functionality and added effects like delays, reverbs, modulations, overdrives, distortions, whatever the line 6 HX effects has available. I can use all that and more to create as many presets or sounds as I want. But before we can even think about tones and all that different stuff, we have to worry about cabling, powering this unit up, and making sure everything's routed the way it needs to be. So I have chosen to use a Rockboard Trace 3.1, which is about 22 inches wide and about 12 inches deep. So you can see that it fits perfectly here on either edge of the HX and the Bluguitar. And this is just a temporary setup. But what is special about the Amp 1 is there's actually tone controls on the side of the amp. And in this current configuration, all those tone controls are being blocked and I can't access those. And another thing we need to look at is we have an opening right here on the board that we can route cables and also power in and out of. And currently I'm going to be bypassing the True Tone 1 spot and taking off this Quilter power supply because I don't have the Quilter amp on here anymore. And I will be attaching the HX Effects default power supply underneath the board via 3mm dual lock, and that'll stay on there really well, and that'll route the cables through these little holes over here. And I'm also going to use this Y splitter to connect the power to the Bluguitar Amp 1 and the HX Effects, and so that way I can power the whole board off of one IEC cable going to the wall and don't really have to do a lot of other stuff. Now, you can see that I have a MIDI cable I have to deal with, and I have to make a few audio connections for the 4-cable method. But other than that, this is going to be a really, really simple setup. And yeah, so let's go ahead and document the process. Alright, so let me turn off the units here. And we're going to basically unplug everything. And I would like to use these cables, but I'm afraid that once I swap these two units around, the cables aren't quite going to be long enough. So I'll look in my little bag here of cables and we'll see what I have available. I may have already cut the cables I had before. We'll just have to see what I have available. So there's that. There's my speaker cable, which is like a 20-footer. And here's our MIDI cable right here. And I did order a 1-foot MIDI cable from Hosa. And that's what I'm going to use to connect the Amp 1 MIDI cable to the MIDI output of the HX Effects. So I'll set those aside for now. And let's unplug that. Let's unplug our Y cable here. And there we go. So you can see that we have a male end and we also have 2 female ends on this side right here. Now on the actual board itself, I did not use 3mm dual lock. I just used the regular old Velcro. And partly the reasoning behind that was I was still in experiment mode. And this kind of Velcro is still fairly easy to get on and off. So let's just pry this up here. Like that. And let's detach the power. So there's the HX Effects, which I really like. This basically replaced my whole entire pedal board about 2 years ago, and it's great. All right, so if we look at the bottom here, we can see that we have the HX power supply with a little adapter cable, and then we have the Y cable going from the adapter, which is powering the HX, and then the other end of the Y cable plugging to the Bluguitar Amp 1. Now, I would like to have a right angle cable right here just to make it a little cleaner, but that's just the way it is for now. But as it sits right now, everything is on and it's working. So let's go ahead and look at the Midi option here. And this is the Midi cable. And I could totally get away with using this, and this is fine. But this is rather long, and I do see some people using either pancake style cables or a connection like this, which would be perfectly fine. Or I also have a short barrel 1/4 inch cable, which may not stick out as far. And that would actually work not too bad. Okay, you can see right there that sticks out like that versus that. Okay, and I don't have a problem with that, but if it's going to be sitting in a case, I don't want that hitting something too much. Or if I plug this one in, that would be an option right there as well. So if I unscrew this here, we can see that we just have some basic connections. You can see we have a ground and we have a positive. So I can easily just desolder that and resolder the new connection, whatever I choose. And that'll work for that. And then as far as the hose cable goes, this is about 1 foot. And it doesn't need to be anything too crazy, but that's actually kind of perfect. So this is going to plug in right here, going there, and that's not going to stick out too far. So you can see that this doesn't need to be a really long connection, but I could probably stick this down the hole here and do some routing underneath, as well as this cable. We can stick that through there as well. And we can plug that in on the bottom. Now this will just be a temporary fix until I get the other cable routed. But you can see that, you know, as long as we got the cable ties down, we can keep everything nice and tidy. All right, so there's that part of the board. All right, so you can see that we already have the Midi working, because then when I hit clean, it changes the channel. Here's my vintage. Here's a supposed to be classic, but that's fine. And then there's modern. All right, so if I actually go here, I can probably, there we go. So clean space has the clean on. If I hit chug, hit save right there. So now it's going to stay on the classic, vintage, and clean. All right, so we know that the Midi is working, and that's great. All right, so let's look in our bag here, and let's see if I actually saved the other cables I was using for the longer connections, and I probably don't have those. So I will have to make some. And these are plugs from gearsupply.co, which is actually out of business. But Boss now has a pedal board kit that you can buy the same exact ends and the same exact cable for probably around 80 bucks for a set. I think there's 10 plugs that come in a set, and with, like, you know, 10 feet of cable or whatever it is. So let's look at the cables we have, and let's see if any of them are going to fit the length that we need. All right, so here's all the cables here. Alright, so first of all, we need to go from the output of the HX to the return of the Bluguitar Amp 1. So none of the cables I have actually are long enough. So I'm going to get the extra cable, cut it to length, and then use a little tool in this bag, which is just a little screwdriver. And I'm going to make the cables, test them, and then wire everything up. Alright, so this is a multimeter. And basically, if you take the black and the red and you touch the tip to tip and sleeve to sleeve, it should read 0 on the screen. So if I turn this on, I currently have it set to 20,000 ohms. And this is reading capacitance here. So here's the multimeter. If I go sleeve to sleeve, it reads 0. If I go tip to tip, it also reads 0. Now, if it reads anything else other than 0, then it's a bad cable. So going forward, this is my test of, hey, did I make the cable correctly or not? Okay. All right, so let's get the cable out. Let's go ahead and do some test runs just to make sure that everything is working properly. So I'm going to be going down, over, through the hole, and back up. Something like that. So we'll make it about this long. And what you want to do is just make it a nice straight cut. Like that. And we'll go ahead and get an end piece. And we need to loosen the screw. And now we're simply just going to push in. And there's a pin right in the middle of this that's connected to the tip. And we're just going to push and then tighten it down. And this screw on the side, this is actually going to connect the ground wire somehow. I don't know how it all works, but that's just how it works. All right. Don't want it too tight. We'll get another connector here. Move this out of the way. So multimeter. All right, so here's the first cable. I'm going to touch sleeve to sleeve. You can see it zeroes out, tip to tip, and zeroes out. So we know we have a good cable. All right. So that's not too hard. We'll bring this back over in position. And this is where the fun begins here, folks. So we're going to go down. We're going to route this through. Let's flip this over so I can see where everything is going. Now, I do have just a little bit of space up above here. See that? So the cables will probably just fit nice and snug under there. Like that. And this will come up through this hole right here and then plug in to there. Alright, so we've made our connection from the send of HX Effects to the input of Bluguitar Amp 1. I'll go ahead and make the rest of the cables and then I'll see you back here soon. Alright, so all the cables are made and all the connections are complete. So how I have everything routed is guitar to HX input, the send of HX going to the input of Bluguitar Amp 1, the send of Amp 1 going to return of HX, and then output of HX going to the return of the Amp 1. So this is not really going to be a playing video, but I will show you real fast some of the functionality I have set up on the HX and how it controls the amp changing and other things on the amp 1. So right now I'm on a clean preset, and you can see that it's on the clean channel. So this is what that sounds like. Now when I hit vintage, you see then it goes to the vintage channel. If I hit classic, it's going to go to classic channel. And when I hit modern, it goes to the modern channel. Alright guys, and that is the basis for my 4-cable method setup on the Bluguitar Amp 1 and the HX effects. I'll tidy up the power underneath and get everything more organized. But for now, this is going to work great. And stay tuned for more videos. So if you want to grow as a musician and take your confidence to another level, then go ahead and sign up down below for my all access membership, where you can learn about music theory, gear, and recording. And if you haven't done so already, hit the subscribe button and click the bell so you'll be notified every time I release new content. I'm Dr. McFarland. I will see you in the next video. Keep rocking.